Mayor Christi Fraga, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I am
Good?
great.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us.
It is my pleasure. Thank you
Yes.
for the invitation.
Of course. You know, I've been following you since the school board, and the very first time we met was in community newspapers when you were sitting down. And then you were the school board member.
Yes.
And now, you've progressed into the mayor, city of Doral, one of the most biggest emerging cities in Miami-Dade County. How does that feel?
I mean, it's been incredible. I'm honored. It's been one of the greatest experiences and one of the greatest honors of my life right now to serve in this capacity. I love our community. I grew up in Doral. I built incredible relationships with our residents. And so I served as a councilwoman before 8 years, which was just as rewarding. But this has just been a different role. And I've had an opportunity to really get engaged on the things that make our residents' lives better, improving their quality, and also the day-to-day operations in the city, which, I love administration. So the policy side to me is obviously so important. I do accounting, so the budgeting in our city is to me really important. But I've really taken a liking to the administrative side of it. And I'm not the administrator, we have a city manager, but we have a great team, and I've had an opportunity to really kind of learn what the departments do more hands-on and how to improve that so that it affects our residents and the business owners directly.
When you were growing up, did you know this was where you were going to end up?
Not at all.
So no. what is the story of how, like, your character development of how we got to be the mayor of Doral?
Well, so no, I did not ever say or think I was going to be in politics. I didn't study. I didn't do political science. I didn't do law or what the normal, the typical tracks that people take if they want or like politics. I was always very interested in politics, and funny enough, when my husband really likes politics and always has, and he was born in Cuba and came, and he's always been very engaged in what's happening on the national level, and he likes. He likes all of that. And so one time when we were having a discussion before we got married, he was like, "Oh, would you ever run for office?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. Maybe one day when I'm much older,
just put it in the pocket,
typical
like that's
stereotype answer, right? I don't know. Maybe one day when I'm older." I was involved like in school and stuff. I've always been very social. I love people. I'm very passionate about many things, particularly now what I do. But I never said like for sure I'm going to run for something. And it wasn't like on my trajectory or path. But God works in mysterious ways. And there was an opportunity in Doral in 2012. I had been living there for 10 years, always working in Doral. My husband had his company. I was working on I do accounting. I study finance and accounting. And I was doing accounting for a company that does real estate acquisitions and development. And so we had property. My partner had property in an area of Doral that flooded really bad. Still has its issues because they're private roads. It's the Doral Decor District now, or the Tile District area. So we had, and the Finger Lakes, and we had areas that flooded really bad, and like I said, still do. And so I was kind of tasked with going to the city and finding a solution. And that's how I kind of got wrapped up in it. I started to go to meetings. I started to have conversations. The business owners started to get involved because we were trying to turn the road into a public road, which, again, still haven't accomplished. I'm finally on my way to accomplishing in one section of a residential area. It's harder to get the business owners to do it, but that's a whole other story. So it's still on my task of things to do. But that's kind of what got me engaged on the municipal level. And I started to realize, I was like, wow, these are big decisions that are made that affect our daily life. The taxes we pay, all these things that we should be involved in. My husband and I had decided to stay in Doral, buy our house. We wanted to have our family there. So I was like, I feel like we need more representation of our age. And, we want to see ourselves. Yeah, we want to see ourselves in the people that represent us. And that's kind of how I got involved. And elections were coming up in November of 2012. It was the first time that we were going to see like a new mayor, because the city's fairly new. It's
compared to the other cities, yes.
22 years incorporated. In 2012, it was almost 10 years at that time. And so I was really the third council that came in. We had only had one mayor.
Like third wave.
Yeah. So I had the great opportunity of meeting many residents that believed in the vision I had, and I got elected, and it was great. And I thought, what an opportunity to really make a change and leave something you found better than how you found it. Yeah. And that's what I did. And then I fell in love with politics.
You caught the bug.
Oh my gosh, I fell in love with politics and people and just an opportunity to do something different. And then my grandmother, you know, when I was younger, always used to tell me, Christi, es mejor ser útil que importante. Didn't really understand what that meant until a certain point, right? But I guess it was like a little bug she always placed in me that I didn't really know and came alive when I ran for the first time.
You think she was referring to, like, by important, like, your ego?
Yeah, I think she meant, and I think she embodies it, is that it's better to be useful and leave a mark and find ways to help people. It's not about being important. It's about the impact you leave on people when you cross their lives. I feel like people come into our lives, and as quickly as they come in, they can come out. But there's always a purpose and an impact that's left. Sometimes good, sometimes bad.
So leading up to your decision to run, right? You said it's 2012, right?
Yeah, I was 23 years old.
Oh my God.
I was 23 years old, yes.
That's like super young.
Yeah, I was very young. I had just gotten married. My husband and I had just gotten married in 2010. I was always very mature for my age. Like most of my friends were older than me.
Like an old soul? Like you like the old stuff?
I've always been an old soul. Yes. So, I can have fun too, but I've always been an old soul.
Leading up to that decision, can you equate it to like one moment, like this happened, now I make this decision? Or was it like a compounding of events that you're like, okay, I see this, okay, you know what I'm saying? Like, was it one moment, or was it like a series of events that led you to that decision?
I think it was a series of events, but it was, so my husband and I started to watch old council meetings when I started to get involved, that I went to try and get this issue taken care of with our city of the roads. And we started to watch old council meetings, like to see how we got to where we were in that time. And I remember we used to watch it like a good sitcom series. Like we would just sit there and watch the old council meetings. People thought we were crazy. And I think that's what really drove me to like, oh, this could be done so much better. Like, I think that it doesn't need to be. Unfortunately, I was not 100% right. Politics is politics. There's always going to be interests and stuff at play. I think it's just how you manage it. But I felt like we could do it better. And I felt like it was our generation's responsibility to do it better. And so that's really what motivated me.
And now, fast forward, you're the mayor. How do you deal with adversity, competing opinions? Most people characterize politics as like a zero-sum sport. Like, in order for you to win, somebody has to lose. So there's always winners and losers. How do you kind of mesh competing interests, whether it's the residents' interest, developers' interest? It's always competing.
I think you have to be a principled person. I think your values, right? So I always say you're never going to make a decision that's going to make everybody happy. Like, it's very hard to make a decision that makes everybody happy. But if you can sleep at night and you really feel in your heart that the decision you made was the best one you could make with the information you had at the time, and you stuck to your values and your principles, then you have nothing to worry about. You can also be wrong. You just can't be righteous about it. You could be wrong. Okay. I've been wrong. I've been wrong several times. And I think that what sets you apart is saying, I was wrong and I'm going to make it right.
That's very human.
I mean, I've been wrong several times, and I've come out and said I was wrong and I made the wrong decision. Maybe I had the wrong advice. Maybe I had the wrong information. I didn't have the right people in my ear. And that's okay. And so you just can't be righteous about it. We're all human and we make mistakes. And I think you grow from making mistakes. So I don't expect to be perfect. And I don't think the people expect me to be perfect. I think what we can be is understanding and always learning and always growing and listening to those around us. I think being a great leader is being a good listener. So I have several examples.
I want to get into those, but I want to explore a little bit about your thought process when you make a decision. So there have been contentious moments in Doral, whether it's now the decision with to partner with ICE, the incinerator, certain developments.
Yeah.
When you make these decisions, what is your start? Do you look at the viewpoint as like the end result, or how can we get there? What I'm saying is, like, how do you start dealing with an issue.
Every action has a reaction, right?
Shout out
And
Newton.
so, yes, obviously, I don't want to. Sometimes I try not to overthink things, right? Because sometimes when we overthink things,
Paralysis.
Yes, paralysis by analysis. We don't want to have that, right? That's not a good thing either. So I don't overanalyze things. Sometimes you have to make a tough decision quick. Have many of those situations too. So again, for me, it's my value system, my faith. I think is where the core is at. But yes, it depends on the scenario, whether I'm like, okay, what's going to be the outcome? And you play different scenarios out in your mind about it. And there are some decisions that are difficult, and your hands may be tied somewhere else. The ICE one was a perfect example for me. Like, it was a tough thing for us because I knew our community was going to take it in a really tough way, right? I knew the community was
Hispanic.
Yeah, we're 90% Hispanic. I come from an immigrant family. Okay, my husband came here when he was 10 years old with a very difficult story, very similar to many of the families that I know and that I know have come here seeking refuge, seeking an opportunity for their children. But I feel like we've done everything we can do to lift the voices of those families that have come here for the right reasons, that have come here to be positive, contributors of our society, have followed the rules, have done things the right way, have waited their turn. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we have lifted those voices and we've been strong advocates for those people. I don't necessarily agree with how every policy decision that's come from the federal government has been enacted.
As it refers to immigration?
I support, I always say this, we could be from the same party and have many of the same views, but have different ways of getting there. We can have, disagreements. That's called a democracy. Yeah. That's great. That's what's made our system so wonderful. And immigration has been one of those hard ones, right? And a great friend of mine said, and I've used it. Yeah, a great friend of mine said, and I've used it several times, I feel like in many cases we've taken a hatchet to things we could have taken a scalpel to, right? So I think there could have been some cases should be looked at with more intention, or
a different lens.
And a case-by-case scenario. I also know that the president received a mandate to fix a broken system, right? And there's certain ways you do it. It's like your parents. As teenagers, we never like the rules our parents set, and we always think they're too aggressive, and they're, we want them to back off, and they've got to be the parent. And it's really for our own good later on. And until you're older and you become a parent, you're like, oh, okay, I understand why my parents did what they did, and why I became the person I became because of the hard decisions they made. So I see it that way too sometimes with politics. Like sometimes we have to make really hard decisions that some people won't like, but it's really for the overall good, the better good. Our system has been broken for a long time. There's been a lot of we've been taken advantage of by many. And so I do think that needs to be fixed. But I do see good people scared and hurt and worried. And these are people who have legal documentation right now. They've never been here in a day legally in their life. They have a status right now or a pending status. So I'm like, you're not at risk. You're fine. But they're scared.
I'm ill.
They're anxious.
That's that sentiment.
And I don't want that feeling in our community. We've spent so much time as a community, and our police department, as our chief, has taken such a priority in building community policing, in building relationships with our community so people and kids feel proud of our police, that they want to be law enforcement. They want to be in law enforcement. It's a career that people, I remember when kids used to dress up and want to be cops, and now they're scared of cops, and it shouldn't be that way, right? And so it hurts me to see our community be affected by a decision that we did not make. It's a decision that was made for us by the state. I just have a legal responsibility when I swore an oath. I have to follow the state and the federal constitution too, and their laws. I can't wake up one morning and say, you know what, I'm not going to stop at a red light anymore because I don't like that law.
Right.
And just take the red light.
Versus like cities like New York or kind of like these states where they just go completely contrarian to the law enforcing it.
And people have told me that, why didn't you do what South Miami did, sue? And I said, well, South Miami sued. And if they prevail, we will act and we will repeal it. But I am not going to go against the states. It doesn't do me it doesn't do our community any justice or any service to do that either. I know the fights that I can take on. I know the battles, that I can, you got to choose certain battles wisely. So I know the ones I can take on and I know the ones that I can't. And this is one that I just don't think that we can take on. And I am telling you, and I'm telling our community, that our police is not here to produce fear or to do anything that they wouldn't normally do. By the way, I said this to a resident the other day too. I said, it has always been a crime in our community to drive, because the big fear, and love the media in a certain sense, right? We all have a public service to do and keep us accountable,
Right.
but like it's my turn to keep you accountable too, in a sense. The media has also stirred a lot of fear in people and have said, oh, now a traffic stop will become an immigration stop. That's not true.
No.
Our police are not going to ask people for their immigration documents when they stop at a traffic stop. It's also always been illegal to drive without the proper paperwork. So whether it was with this agreement or this a memorandum of understanding for training with ICE, or 3 months ago or 2 years ago, if you were driving in our roads and you didn't have the proper documentation and our police pulled you over, they could detain you because
Right.
it is illegal. Our police has never abused their power. I don't intend that they will do that now.
Yeah, I think you bring. So there's two things I want to kind of go back to, which is you made the thing about the scalpel with the hatchet.
They took a hatchet to something they could have taken a scalpel to. So that's just more precise, right?
Claro.
You like hatched away at a big issue when you could have taken a scalpel. Dan Espino was the one that told me. I said, that's a really good, I'm going to take that from you because it's good.
Politics, obviously, I would agree. I would argue that whether you're Republican, Democrat, in the middle, super far right, super far left, most people want the same things. They want to be safe. They want to have an economy that prospers.
Yeah.
And more importantly, people want to be fulfilled.
Absolutely.
We disagree on how we get there. So some people might say what the decision with ICE is incorrect. Some might be, this is the best thing ever. But at the end of the day, you came from a framework of this is for the better good. This is for our community. And when you are in an election, yes, you won by a majority, but then you look at all the people that didn't vote for me. You know what I mean? Or the people who, quote unquote, didn't support me, but you still have the task of representing everybody.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Regardless if you voted for me or not, I'm still your mayor.
And those people that haven't voted for me in the past, or maybe some that didn't vote for me one time and then they voted for me because they saw that I tried to be I feel like I'm very reasonable. I give everybody time. I really take into consideration how important it is to listen to everybody, whether you supported me or not. And so, listen, one of my opponent's dads came to my office the other day because he had an issue and he wanted to talk about it. And I gave him a meeting and I met with him and I heard him out. So I truly believe that is the respect our community deserves. Once the elections are over, the campaign is over.
Yeah. We
represent everybody and our goals should be the same, which is to do the right thing, to make, to improve people's quality of life, safety, security, opportunity. That's what our goals are. Our goals should be aligned, should be the same. We may have different ways of getting there, as we've said, but our goals should absolutely be aligned. So, because we should all want what's best for our community.
Yeah. So you've been mayor in 2 administrations. So comparing how how Doral was during Biden and now with Trump, what do you see like the main differences in terms of like governance? Did it get easier? Did it get better? Did it get worse?
That's like a loaded question.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because at the end of the day, you've been able to see a variety of policies, right? Because Trump became president.
Honestly, I didn't have any relationship with the Biden administration. I didn't have any relationships there. I do with the Trump administration. And obviously he has his resort in the city. And so he comes a lot. So I've seen him a couple of times since he's been president and even before that. And I obviously have a relationship with his kids and stuff. And so, because they do a lot at the resort. And it's one of their primary properties. I mean, if they're not in Mar-a-Lago, they're in Doral a lot of times. And they come and they play golf and stuff. So it's been taxing on our resources because we do have to provide security for them. And so we actually are asking the state for some support on that and trying to recover some of those funds for our city. But, I think that, like I said, I've been in favor of many of the decisions that have been made. I think that they were necessary for our country. I think they're necessary for our national security, but it's been hard. I've seen the fear in our community by the way, our community voted for Trump overwhelmingly.
Exactly.
Overwhelmingly. And there's Venezuelans and Colombians and everybody that's like, they love Trump. They love his position and his firmness. It's like he makes a decision and that's where we're going. And I think people can respect that. But I do sense people's worry on the immigration side because Look, the majority of our residents are legal residents or citizens already. The majority. But there is a percentage that are here on they're waiting on a status.
Or like a TPS.
They're on TPS, or they may be on political asylum or parole, and those things have all been
in question.
Well, no, they've not only been in question, they've really just been repealed and canceled.
Yeah.
So some people are a little bit concerned that they'll be left in a limbo, and they don't want to be here illegally. There are people who don't want to.
Who want to pay taxes, want to work, want to contribute.
That's right. And they want to be here legal. They want to have a legal status here. They don't want to be here legal. So I actually, my son has 3 kids in his class. One has already left, that the families are choosing to self-deport because they don't want to go through that. They don't want to go through that stress for their family of like not being here legally. So once their TPS is up, they'll leave. And so that's sad to see in a certain case. And by the way, some of them, their kids are U.S. citizens. So they'll have the opportunity to come back at some point. But and they say it. They're like, I'd rather be able to come back through the proper channels. Like, I'd rather not outstay my status here and then be here legally and not be able to come back later through a proper procedure or process. So they're choosing to leave. And so, I see, and that it hurts because they are good people that have come here to open businesses, provide employment, pay taxes, educate their kids.
Yeah.
So, but it's part of the process.
When you're working with other elected officials, and you don't necessarily see eye to eye in terms of either a policy or the strategy to do it, how do you bring people to your side? Not so much the community, like the politics. Like, how do you navigate political waters where maybe you might not have the best positioning, or you actually have the best positioning, and you know what I'm saying? Like the gamesmanship, the chessboard of it.
You can try. I mean, I've tried. I will try to find common ground. I will try and find compromise, like in everything in life. And we will try and work out the issues. But ultimately, the majority rules. So you have a choice to play nice and be a part of what the progress we're making. You have a choice not to be. I will do my best to build camaraderie and union and include everybody and create inclusion in that sense. But some people just want to be naysayers, and they just
or the contrarian,
and that's fine too. You got to answer the public at the end of the day. At the end of the day, when people go into that ballot box, you don't know what happens, and they're the ones that decide.
Yeah.
So you got to answer to the people.
100%.
We do hold people accountable, though. That's for sure. And I've always said it. I've always said it to my family. I mean, to my to my family, my colleagues. They are my family, guys. I tell my colleagues all the time. I'm like, if the people don't hold you accountable, I will. We all have tasks. We have a job to do, and I expect those who are elected to do it and to do it right with integrity and with honor.
We obviously work a lot with politicians, elected officials, nonprofits, and one of the things that I do have to say is that I like how you keep it real. Like, you look people in the eyes like, esto no sirve.
Oh yeah, I'm very.
Esto no sirve.
I respect people's time. That's what it's about, and I've had this issue many times with like my political advisors. They're like, tienes que ser un poco más política. Or you have to be a little more political, like a little more PC. Just tell people. People want to come and give you all these like things, that great ideas or whatever. And I'm very quick to be like, yeah, no, that's not gonna happen. It's not good for the community. It's not this, that, And but because I respect people's time, and so like I don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste my time. Like I have a lot of things going on, so it's not to be, short about it. But like if you have a great idea, let's do it. Let's find. I'm a big if I like your idea or you got a good idea or it's something good for the community, we're going to get it done. And when I say I'm going to do something, I get it done. But I'm not going to waste your time if you have something that doesn't work for our community, or I don't think it's the right thing, or like people that come and ask us for tons of money from the city. I'm like, oh yeah, we're not a bank. Yeah. Like that doesn't work here. That's not going to happen with us.
But I think your energy really fits our community.
Yeah. Because
Hispanics overall are just very no nonsense, like to the point. Some people say like Miami and New York, they get this fame of like that we're like rude, and I say no, we're just like busy.
Straightforward.
Yeah, we're like no, yeah.
So, and I feel like people will respect you more for that. I think that's I've built so much respect in the community because I tell you how it is. You know what? I'd rather tell you I can't do something and then surprise you than tell you I'm going to do something and not
under promise, over deliver.
100% of the time. Under promise, over deliver. 100% of them. One of my greatest assets or secret weapons, I guess you could say, has been I've been underestimated at every turn. And I love it. Love it. Keep underestimating me. One, it drives me. Two, I surprise you most of the time, you know, and I know what I'm capable of, but I like to be underestimated because it's my little secret weapon. Yeah. Then when I surprise people, they're like, oh, wow. Whereas when people have these huge expectations of you, it's a lot of pressure to like perform to those expectations. Like I always used to tell people, I love the pressure. I enjoy the pressure of the campaign more than I enjoy the pressure of doing the job. Because the pressure of the campaign, it's like, I know I'm going to perform. But the pressure of the job, I rely on a lot of people.
And there's things that you can't control.
Yeah, and so it's hard. I mean, I know I'm going to get things done, but I almost feel like people expect something of you, you know? And I'm like, I don't want to not meet those expectations. So I put a lot of pressure on myself for it. But I always under-promise, over-deliver every time. I tell my colleagues that all the time too. I'm like, guys, if there's something you learn is don't promise something you can't commit to. Yeah. Don't do it because people will remember you for that. You're only good as the last good deed you did. So.
With that in mind, would you say you're a perfectionist? Would you say you're very self-critical?
Oh, yeah.
And when you don't meet your internal goals, how do you get yourself out of a rut, or how do you deal with your failure?
Yeah, I absolutely am my own worst critic. I think most of us are our own worst critics, right? And that's a good thing. And I think women do it to ourselves more than men. Like I've seen women who are fully overqualified for a job. And if they don't meet one requirement on a job description, they won't apply. And men, they don't meet one requirement on the job and they're like, I'm going to get it. Claro. I'm like, okay. So I think we have to be a little bit more confident of our capabilities. And of course, that's not every man. I'm not trying to stereotype men and women at all, but I see it a lot, like in my friends and stuff. And so yes, I'm very critical of myself. I expect the best from our team. You know, I'm very demanding when it comes to our team, and like, because I know the potential that we have, and I know the potential of the people around me, and I always try and surround myself with people that are better than me and smarter than me and wiser and, you know, harder working. And I think that makes me better, and it should make any team better. But yeah, I think that sometimes our own doubts are what stop us from accomplishing
like imposter syndrome, like
certain
this isn't
goals.
For me, or...
Yeah, look, I said this to somebody the other day. I said I've grown the most when I've been the most scared. We grow the most when we're the most scared. You know, if you've never felt fear, you're trying to avoid fear in life, then you're avoiding growth. You definitely don't want to avoid that. Fear is a good thing. So it's okay to be scared. That means you're growing. You're learning something. You're stretching. So you're stretching those muscles, emotional muscles. Have you always
put yourself out of this like comfort zone?
Yes.
Like your whole life, like always, like yo me tiro.
Always. Yes. Yes. Yeah. I think that definitely that's part of my personality for sure. Yeah. So, you know, how do we overcome those things? I think it's just building more faith in yourself, believing more in yourself, failing so that you can know that you can overcome those failures. For me, my faith, again, my foundation, my family, those are the things that have allowed me to get through adverse moments.
Perfect. So, Mary, you talked about roles of men and women and your family, and this is something that I wanna talk to you about because I think you're in a very unique position. So, I would characterize you como una fuente. Our community loves that. When I see you in commission meetings, you're no nonsense, you're straight to the point, but you're fair. Okay? I've had the privilege of having dinner with you and your family. And when I saw you there, you were the mayor, but you were extremely feminine. And I made the comment that I was like, man, when I see you and your husband, I'm like, you guys actually love each other. Like, this ain't no for the cameras, no. Like BS. Like, you guys are a team, and I can see that. So how do you balance masculinity and femininity? Because if you were very feminine at work, I feel like people will walk over you and think you're a pushover and take advantage of you. But you are definitely not masculine in your personal relationship. No. So how do you...
So it's a great question. I've always been a girly girl, like feminine, and I love to dress up, and I like fashion, and you know, I like to feel pretty, and I like my husband to tell me I look beautiful, and I like him to open the door and buy me flowers and all things women like. And yes, I consider myself to be a very feminine woman. And you know, I think that there's a role to be played in every part of your life. I think you could be very feminine and very strong, 100%. And I also think that you can command respect with a smile on your face. You can be empathetic while being, while also being assertive. So I think it's learning to manage those things and understanding, putting yourself in other people's positions at times too, and understanding how they'll take certain things that you say. I always tell people it's not about what you say, it's how you say it.
And the tone.
Many times, yeah. So it's knowing when I need to be firm and assertive, and then knowing when I can sit back and kind of let someone else take the lead. And my husband's very, very masculine and very, assertive and he's a leader himself. And so that role in our house, I mean, he is the man of the house, and, but we bounce ideas off of each other. Very much a team. Listen, if he's got to do the laundry, he does it. He's got to do the dishes, he does it. He is the one that takes my son to school in the mornings. He'll pick him up. He'll take him to golf. So we don't categorize our roles like what mom should do and what dad should do. We do it together, and we both take the responsibilities that we chose in life together. And we tackle them together. And in the office and at work, I still get underestimated many times, as we talked about. Yeah. And there are still people that think, I was told the other day, I'm just a pretty face playing politics. And I said, okay, you think that.
Keep thinking that.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think it's great. It is my secret weapon in many cases. So, but I think when people see me in a commission meeting or they see me in a table of men, because I still find myself to be the only woman in a room of men many times. I think it's the way you carry yourself, the way you walk in. My parents always taught me to have a firm handshake, and a straight stare. So I think it's looking people in the eye and also never entering a meeting unprepared.
Yeah, for sure.
Never entering a meeting unprepared. So always be prepared and try and be over-prepared as much as possible. That has a lot to do with the team you have around you too. So, I don't know. I don't know if I answered the question really,
I think
in the sense that
but I always think about like...
I'm a very much girly girl.
No, I know it. And that's why...
If I don't have my nails done every other Friday, I feel like a man.
No. And that's what I was saying, like when we were having a dinner, I was like, oh my God, like you... Like if I didn't know you were the mayor, I would be like... Dude, like this is normal. This is like tú eres una mujer, and when
it's funny. You know what happens to me a lot of times still? If I'll enter a room of people that don't know who the mayor is, somebody who wasn't prepared, because if you're going to enter a room when you're meeting people for the first time, what do? You should Google their picture or like try and look up
or research
who it is. But I'll have people and I'll walk in with other, like my deputy city manager who's a man, or my city manager who's an older female, but she's older than me. The last thing they think is that I'm the mayor. Yeah. They will put their attention to everybody else in the room, but me. They'll notice me, but like when they're talking, right? When they're talking, they'll be looking at someone else or whatever, like the man or the older person in the room, until they're introduced. Like, well, this is the mayor. And they're like,
and then they stiffen up, and then they just
like, oh, okay. Or they hear me speak, and then they're like, oh, okay, she knows what she's talking about. So, I think we have to work a little harder sometimes as women, and especially as a young woman. I've had to work a little harder, which I don't mind. I really don't. It's not a complaint at all for me. I think it's naturally in my personality anyway. But I think I've had to work a little harder than maybe a man would, or maybe someone a little bit older than me. And I'm not this feminist either, like, we are still breaking glass ceilings as women, but it's up to us to want to break those glass ceilings. Not every woman wants to break them. It's okay. Doesn't mean she's any less
of a
badass.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can say that, but
no,
doesn't mean she's any less than a badass. But it just, the difference is just what expectations or what goals we set for ourselves. I think every woman could be just as successful as any man if they put their mind to it. Do we have to work a little harder sometimes? Maybe. Yes.
I think in recent times, the reason I bring up this whole like dichotomy of masculine versus feminine is because there's been, especially in media and all these podcasts talk about kind of like societal roles, right? Like 50 years ago, a lot of the things that you've accomplished might not have happened because of access, because of positioning and things like that. And
but I think we've broken all those barriers at this point.
No, but the point I'm trying to make is that this topic has been, especially today, very widely discussed because there's this kind of emergence of men becoming super feminine, and then women becoming super masculine. And I think you've balanced it perfectly.
And I think I think we have roles in society, you know, that we shouldn't lose. You know, like I want my husband to be seen as the man of the house. I want my son to see that. I want my son to see, I want to be like my dad, who can provide for our family, you know, open my mom's door. And then I want him to look at me and say, I want a woman like that, who is independent, who can hold herself in a room, who I'm proud of, but also looks beautiful, you know, and is soft.
That takes care of me.
You know, you know, I think Rose very well describes what a woman should be. Beautiful, but we got thorns, man. Don't ask me to poke you, because I will. You know, so that's I think it's a good balance that needs to exist. You know, I don't want to see a woman who looks too masculine and stuff. Like, I'm not afraid of wearing a dress or a skirt or, you know, I mean, I'm just more comfortable in pants sometimes.
That's how it works.
But, you know, you won't see me in flats. I'm always in heels. You know, I think there's certain things that you have to balance in that. But I think a man has its role in society that should never be taken away, and the female has a role. And it should not be a stereotype for anybody. There's some women who are happy at home taking care of the kids, and they are fulfilled in that, and they do it amazingly, and I take my hats off to them. And there's women who don't want to have kids, and that's fine too, you know? And then there's men that, you know, want to be a stay-at-home dad, and they are the best stay-at-home dads ever. And there's men who want to be the CEO jet-setting on a, you know, 747 all the time. That's great too. I think everybody can set their goals and their objectives and their desires, and only you can stop yourself from getting there.
For sure. What advice would you give young women who want to aspire but might feel a little scared or might feel like their circumstances controls their life?
Feeling scared is a good thing. You know, don't stop yourself because you're scared of something. You learn the most in the most fearful moments. Find a good team, find people that are like-minded, that will celebrate you for, you know, all your attributes, will lift you when you're down, and that you can do the same for them. Because it's always good to have a good support system around you. But don't let the reflection in the mirror stop you from achieving your most wildest dreams.
Very nice. Mayor, I want to switch a little bit to your vision for the city of Doral. How would you characterize Doral's identity when you compare it to the other cities? Question. Yeah, because at the end of the day, like, for example, like, I see Miami-Dade County, fourth largest county in the United States, 26 municipalities, all different governments, all different personalities, all different flavors. So how would you characterize your city?
That is a great question. Because, you know, last year I was saying Doral is at a crossroads where it needs an identity. I said that not too long ago. And I don't know that I can answer that for you right now, particularly with a, like, concrete answer. But I think where we're headed is an extremely multicultural city with a lot of economic opportunity. I think we have really, really well achieved balancing live, work, learn, play. I really do believe we have embodied and lived our motto. I feel like everybody in Doral, we kind of all know each other. Everybody knows each other. We are a true little family. We're a big city. Like you said, we're one of the largest cities in Miami-Dade County, and we're like an up-and-coming city. And, like, I mean, you don't have to leave Doral for anything anymore. No. You know, with the park we're opening, our cultural center, all the wonderful restaurants, our downtown Doral,
there's a lot
city
of amenities.
place. There's a lot.
A very high quality when you compare it to other cities. So I do accredit that to a lot of population growth, because Doral over the last 20 years has seen tremendo development.
Yes.
Both, you know, business.
Important companies. So there's job opportunities. So I really do think that we have really captured our motto to live, work, learn, and play. But being this big city, we still feel like a small hometown. You come to downtown Doral in the mornings and you see everybody walking their kids to school. Like, we're all walking our kids to school. Everybody, the kids, I feel like I'm in a movie sometimes. I'm not even joking. I'll be walking out and they'll be like, hi, Mayor. And I'm like, hi, like saying hi to the kids, giving me high fives. And I'm walking my son to school. It's only something you see like in a cartoon, you know? And it's not just downtown Doral. You go over to like EBT or like the west side of the city. It's the same. You see everybody out walking, riding their bike. We're very active. Our parks are Same thing, you're walking in the parks and everybody's, hi, Mayor. How? And I don't know if it's because I'm just very involved in the community, so people know me, and I've been now for so long. Like, I've lived in the community for so long. I've grown up there. My kids, my life is very public, so maybe that's why. But I think it's something you don't see anywhere else. And actually, I had somebody write me on Instagram a couple weeks ago. It was a young mom with her daughter. They had to move to Orlando because her husband got relocated in his job. And she wrote me on Instagram because her daughter, it was during Women's History Month, had to do a thing about women. And she wrote about me. And she did like this story. And she goes, you impacted my daughter so much in her life because you used to come to the school all the time and you always impact her. So she wrote about you and she sent me the thing. It was beautiful. And she's like, I miss that about like our community. We're living in Orlando now and we don't have that. And it was just so beautiful to see that like the kids knew who their mayor is, and like you don't see that anywhere. And that you're so involved in the schools and that, I'm active. I'm in all the chats and WhatsApp, people, if somebody wants to get a hold of me, they know how to get a hold of me. And so I feel like that is what identifies Doral. It's family, it's culture, it's love. Yeah, so it's that real rooted Latin community.
Do you see Doral like geographically expanding past the turnpike? Do you see it expanding? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Because I look at like how much development has happened.
So we had some applications for annexation. I'm not sure if you followed what happened in the county commission. Commissioner Cabrera, now ambassador to Panama, had put a moratorium on annexations before he left for 5 years, which we suffered a couple years ago. I want to say like 6 years ago, maybe, a moratorium that was put at that time to study annexations. And this is a whole topic for a whole other time, but we did have two annexation applications that were approved in 2021 that have not been granted to us, even though, and they're being held up by our county commissioner. They should have been granted when Medley got theirs and Sweetwater got theirs because we were all part of the same approvals and ours was the only one held up. It's not over the turnpike. It's to protect the entry of 58th Street. We would get 58th Street from 79th Avenue to 87th Avenue to 64th to kind of preserve the natural entry. That's one of the main entrances of Doral. We want to beautify it. We want to improve it. And then also Section 6, which is the north corridor where like Flagler Station is, where Ryder used to be and all that, which is by 107th Avenue from 90th to 106th and all the way to 117th, that quadrant. The county normally doesn't like cities to jump natural boundaries. The turnpike's a natural boundary. So we most likely wouldn't be able to go that way. There's also the urban development boundary ends there because of the well water field. So it doesn't seem like there'll be any development on that side. So I doubt we'll be able to annex that way. And then to the south and west of 107th is Sweetwater already. So we would be running into Sweetwater. So I'm not sure there's much growth for us that way. A lot of people have asked if we would go expand more towards the airport, those unincorporated areas. I don't think it would be a bad thing. I will tell you this, and I'm only going to talk about it very briefly. We can have a conversation about it another day. I do think the county needs to look at getting out of municipal services and look at possibly converting more cities, like creating more unincorporated areas into incorporated areas and get out of those municipal services. The county is going through a huge financial crisis. Now with the constitutional offices, it's going to become very difficult. And we don't want to increase the cost of living for people more by increasing taxes. So I do think there needs to be a holistic look at how the county reinvents itself in that aspect, and that they focus on the things they're good at and let cities focus on the things that they're good at.
For sure. Do you think then, with all that being considered, that the development that's going to occur in Doral is vertical? As in,
I think we're seeing that happen all throughout Miami-Dade County. Now, Doral's in an interesting position because we're in the flight path to the airport, so we can't go that high.
You can't put a 20-story building and then
You can. 20 is about the highest you can go, which is what downtown Doral is. But it depends on the flight path. Like, we have a lot of FAA restrictions, which I love. It makes it easier for me. But I think you will start to see more. You will start to see more apartments, but not to the extent that some may think, right? Like, I'll give you a perfect example. International Mall is currently redeveloping. There will be some residents coming into International Mall. Yeah, they're going through a redevelopment. About 27 acres was purchased. And so they'll probably do some garden-style apartments, which is 3 stories, maybe 4. So it won't be very tall, but they'll do some type of housing on the property there, which I think is it's compatible. You're right on the entrance of a major highway. Eventually, that'll be a high transit corridor area. You've got the CSX line there. So you got to plan for that growth. It's going to happen throughout Miami-Dade County. So there's not a lot of land left for single-family homes. There is a couple of single-family homes that are going to be built now. I want to say it's about 100 of them in downtown Doral. They're taking down those old office buildings, and they're going to expand the houses that they did. They did so well in the market that they're going to do more homes there. So, but there's not a lot of space left, land left to build homes, and land is so expensive in Miami-Dade County that it doesn't make financial sense for the developer to do homes in a lot of cases. And it's hard. I try to explain this to residents all the time. Landowners have development rights. And so we are limited to what rights they have and how we negotiate what's best for the community, right? It's a give and take there. We're seeing that in
the Little Abner debacle, what's happening in
Yes.
Sweetwater. That's a prime example of how...
they are trying to mimic exactly what we did in downtown Doral. And I think it's great for that area. They need it. And I know it's hard for those people. They feel like they're being maybe displaced. I talk a lot about that as well. One of the things that I'm focused on is doing senior housing, to do low-income senior housing, because I do believe our seniors have a right to age with dignity and with quality of life. And like Doral doesn't have any senior housing. And so I want to create something for them that's affordable, So I think that there's challenges to the market, and I think that there's inventory that we need to focus on and we need to build. I think workforce housing is being taken care of. There's a lot of workforce housing coming up throughout Miami-Dade County. Even in Doral, there's 3 projects right now. So I think we're going to see, I don't think it's happening fast enough for some people. I think it's fast enough, but right. I don't think it's happening fast enough for some people who need it. But I think there'll be, what we don't want is a flood in the market later and then
everything goes down.
And then everything goes down. So I think we'll start to see a balance be reached in the next couple years.
On the topic of development, so to finalize with this, what is something that you are totally opposed to? Like, this will not happen in my city, development-wise. Like, we're not going to put a casino in the middle.
No, absolutely not.
You know what I'm
totally
saying?
opposed to casino.
What are you totally opposed to?
I mean, that's hard to say because it depends, but I'm totally opposed to the incinerator coming back to Doral.
There we go.
Totally opposed to that. I don't want the incinerator back in Doral. I think that it's inconsistent, and it's an inconsistent use for the area. I think that it's detrimental to the quality of life and health of our residents. I don't think it's the right area. And a lot of people say, so you just want to pick it up and put it in another city. No, I don't. The legislation we're trying to pass in the state of Florida would require it to be 1 mile away from any resident. That means it wouldn't go into any city.
Right.
I don't want it in my backyard. I don't want it in yours. I want it in a place where, first of all, you don't have to do an incinerator. Let's start by there. But if you choose to, because it's the only way to process and burn as much trash as we create as a community, which is a problem, we should try and reduce the use, reduce how much trash we're creating. That's something we all need to start working on ourselves. But I want them to look for a place that doesn't affect the quality of life of any resident. And there is places, there's areas out west where there's truck parking and, no development allowed because it's outside the urban development boundary. And I think we should protect that.
Like by Chrome where you go to our land, you know what I'm saying? When you go up Broward, that's a pretty good area.
So there's tons of areas that you can do it where it's not going to affect any residential area around. Now, what we have to do is protect that area. You can't allow other county commissioners to come later and then build around there, because that's what happened in Doral. It was out in the middle of nowhere,
and then
they started developing around it with the idea that eventually it would move. So there has to be boundaries and limits to what we can build. But no, I don't want to pick it up. Everybody always accuses me of this when I talk about it. I don't want to pick it up and put it in your backyard, but I don't want it in mine. So, is that not a fair thing to say?
It's very fair.
Okay.
Mayor, we've talked a lot about your mindset, your vision for Doral. In conclusion, I wanted to ask you, yourself as a leader, right? Nobody's born a leader, you become one. And everybody's on their journey. And you still have many years ahead of you. What is something that for sure. What is something that you want to further develop, or a skill that you might not have sharpened that you want to see or that you want to work on for yourself?
I think we always have to work on our patience and our empathy. I think that, it's very easy in what I do to lose patience and also to lose sight of people's problems, right? Because you're hearing it all day long. You're hearing,
Almost like getting detached?
Yeah. So it's hard you almost become desensitized to people's concerns and problems and stuff. So I think it's staying true to why this is important to you, or important to me in this case, right? It's helping people. It's doing the right thing. It's not losing sight of that the problem that the person may be bringing to them may be the biggest thing. To you may be the smallest, dumbest things. You've heard a million things. But to that person, that may be the biggest issue. And so it's giving that person that time, understanding, empathizing with that person, and like treating them like if it was your abuelita, your abuelito, your tia, your tío, like really taking their problem as your own, and trying to fix it. That's what I signed up for. Aside from many other things that we do, but I think that that's one of the things I run into quite a bit. So I'm always working on that, reminding myself of that, staying grounded, and being patient, with people.
Well, Mary, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. We're going to continue to follow your journey
Thank you.
and all the good work that you're going to continue to do.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Yeah. Woo!